We've all got problems. I've got them, you've got them. Some of us don't want to deal with them, some of us avoid them, but we all have them. But what if I was to tell you that your problem isn't your problem? Now stick with me. I've got a little personal story to explain exactly what I mean. If I told you that I lost $2 million, my career, my reputation, and very nearly my life, all because of a gambling addiction, would it surprise you if I also told you that gambling wasn't my problem? Would it surprise you if I also told you that your problem isn't your problem? Wait, does that even make sense? It certainly does, and I'm about to share with you exactly why. And I'm also going to share with you the lessons that I learned from that $2 million education. Lessons that may be the difference between you being able to create a conscious life that you can be proud of, or staying stuck exactly where you are on a race to rock bottom. G'day, I'm Gary Fay, the Neurostoic, and I've been helping high-performing individuals, teams, and organizations build mental strength, success, and resilience by combining the science of the mind with the philosophy of action for more than 20 years. And you can get all the actionable tactics that I share absolutely free by smashing that subscribe button and checking out our page. But back to your success. There's no doubt for me, gambling was a problem, but it wasn't the problem. You may have one of these in your life: alcohol, food, laziness, depression, anxiety, anger, addiction. So, if gambling wasn't my problem, then what was wrong? In its simplest form, I had lost my identity and I was unhappy. Deeply unhappy with something inside me, and I ran from it. I hid, usually in the only place that guaranteed me a small period of freedom from those feelings: gambling. I was unhappy, and I was unhappy with me. I did not know it, nor did I know why, but I was definitely unhappy. There was something inside me that knew I was not becoming the man I believed I was put on this earth to be. And every decision I was making was taking me further and further away from that man. Exactly what that man would, could, or should look like at the time, I'll be buggered if I knew. But where I was heading was definitely not it. It mattered not that I had many of the things that I desired: a great family, a job that I was destined for, mates that would do anything for me. I was physically fit, I was healthy, I was earning good money, and had a bright future. Although none of it, at least in the combinations that I had it, none of it made me happy. So what did it? What is this deep learning and hindsight that just might become the answer to your own problems? Unfortunately, as the famous saying goes, you always find it in the last place you look. Humans, myself included, have an innate bias towards solving the problem they see in the mirror. This is metaphorically speaking, although many will understand this figuratively also. For me, the first target was gambling. It was my most obvious problem in the mirror. You may have your own, you may already know what it is, and it's the problem you see first. There's a safety in targeting the problem that you see in the mirror. It's a path that our loved ones will applaud our efforts for, and it requires a lot less digging. It is also highly unlikely to provide any meaningful, productive, or sustainable change. The problem with solving superficial, not insignificant, but superficial issues is that superficial solutions rarely stick. And so, while it was a battle, one I was ill-equipped for a long time, digging beyond the superficial was the only way I would survive to find my peace, a purpose, and a chance at prosperity. But let's start with the escape. 868-72963. It was the first betting account I used in my life. I was 8. As controversial as this might sound, I don't believe this to be remotely responsible for my gambling addiction. An addiction that cost me almost $2 million. I make no effort to combat psychiatric and psychological studies on gambling disorders, nor social commentary on habits forming at impressionable ages within children. I don't dispute these in any way, shape, or form. Yet I imagine I was around 4 years of age when I had my first sip of the froth off a beer, but I'm not an alcoholic. I had my first cigarette, ironically also when I was 8, yet I do not smoke. I watched and participated in violent sports and video games, but I am far from physically aggressive. I grew up in a family that provided an abundance of love, incredibly hardworking parents, forging themselves to ensure their only child would not want for anything, irrespective of where they had to start their life. I placed my first bet when I was 8 years old, but escaping became my addiction, not gambling. Gambling simply became the means through which I found that escape. My version may not be the clinical definition and may be out of step with qualified, experienced, and expert opinion, but it is my lived experience. It is my understanding. My understanding is not an attempt to dispute the science, but is layered in a story, told through experience that makes sense to me and may make sense to you. My version is also the only way out of this mess that I have mastered. By owning my version, I have been able to control its destiny. But back to the escape. I do not know where my thoughts were when I was gambling, but I do know that the noise would stop. And so I continued to hide in the dark corners of my escape. The one simple pleasure I garnered from gambling was escape. Unfortunately, gambling was exceptionally good at fulfilling its purpose. And for years, I was able to slip into the escape that it provided, almost unchecked. The question for you, what are you escaping to right now? And it's a question I had to ask myself. What am I escaping from? I have often wondered whether I suffer from depression or suffered from depression. Do I have depression? Or is it that I had depression? Or is it none of the above and just a figment of my imagination? Or perhaps a term given to a misunderstood, misutilized, and mismanaged set of thoughts? For me, forensic psychiatrists would describe it as a diagnosis of major depressive disorder, made on the basis that Mr. Fay, me, has experienced pervasive low mood state, reduced ability to experience pleasures, low energy, tearfulness, social withdrawal, sleep impairment, and suicidal ideation. Sounds like a barrel of laughs, doesn't it? Well, I've got a much simpler and personal definition, perhaps equally as ominous. Imagine holding your children, your partner, your parents, the people you love most in the world, and wanting to be nowhere near that embrace. Not anywhere else specifically, just not there. Think about this for a moment. Deeply think about it. Imagine a place that is your home, your comfort, your entire world. And anytime you find yourself there, you feel nothing, just emptiness. This would become my defining image of depression and how it affected me, and has become the one true definition that I understood. Perhaps one of the toughest experiences, especially as a problem solver, was not being able to understand where the darkness came from. There was nothing wrong in my life. Quite the contrary, in fact. Life was good. I have discovered it to be a familiar concept. A life brimming with achievement, family, friends, career, excitement, finances, material wealth, and yes, without proper meaning attached, even family and friends can be undervalued as achievements, as opposed to fulfilling, purposeful foundations to a rich and abundant life. I had all that success, yet a feeling of emptiness. According to everything life had taught me, my social conditioning, if you will, I had everything in my life that I wanted, and yet I remained deflated. Putting it all together, there is no surprise that from this existence, my first instinct was to escape. The problem was, depression also wasn't the problem I was trying to escape from. It was merely an excuse. My ego had created a story and a belief that I was impenetrable. I would describe it as externally bulletproof. And perhaps I could have been if I had mastered two key elements that eluded me: brutal honesty and vulnerability. And that is where solving the problem you see in the mirror has its flaws. It's flawed because we all lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves primarily for one reason. Nobody wants to be responsible for their own pain. I could have been forgiven for continuing to solve the problem I saw in the mirror, the escape that was gambling. And I probably would have been commended for trying to solve the excuse that drove me there, my depression. Even that is a pretty vulnerable and honest place to be, and one that very few arrive at. But that just wouldn't have cut it. It wouldn't have solved the real problem, and it wouldn't have allowed me to find the level of success that I have over the past 5 years. No, my problem wasn't gambling or depression. No doubt, both problems within themselves, but neither was the problem. You might not be ready to own this. You might sometimes acknowledge it out loud, but never truly believe it. But the problem, 100% of the time, was me. My ego, my identity, or lack thereof, and my inability to be honest with myself, which led me down a path that there was almost no return from. In the absence of a clear, conscious, and compelling identity, we all become a victim of conditioning, a victim of circumstances, and a victim of comfort. And I was living in complete denial that a problem even existed, let alone that the problem was me. Don't kid yourself. Escape happens on a spectrum, and it happens to everyone. Unless you have a complete conscious awareness, understanding and ownership of your own identity, an identity constructively developed, then an escape exists inside your life also. If you are chasing things in your life and linking their attainment with your happiness, you are missing the most important aspect to happiness, meaning. You might be noticing yourself taking more risk in your business, in your life, in your relationship. You might dream of the car, the holiday, the house, or the promotion to take your troubles away. Once I get X, then I'll be okay. Look deeper. What has become your escape? I wasn't smart enough or strong enough to address mine before it had disastrous effects on my life and the lives of those I cared about. But you don't have to wait for rock bottom to start. You don't have to give up everything in your life to change. And even if you are currently successful, you can forge forward to develop peak performance, to be brutal, to be bold, and to be better. And if you're ready to learn more about creating your own clear, conscious, and compelling identity to build your own life of success, no matter whether you're bouncing off rock bottom or on the edge of greatness, then check out the videos here to see exactly how we do it. My goal is to move everyone from where they are now to where they want to be. But I need you to do your bit. Chase success, be brutal, and don't stop.